Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome back. It's time for another deep dive, and today we're going to be looking at the expanding influence of Elon Musk.
Sounds good.
So, we're going to be examining his journey, from tech entrepreneur to a figure whose impact now extends across multiple sectors, including technology, media, politics, and even international relations.
Right.
And our goal is to really understand the extent and implications of this influence and consider how private individuals like Musk are shaping the modern world.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very timely question, especially given all the things that have been going on with him and Twitter and everything else.
Absolutely. And I think a good place to start is really to trace back his trajectory to his early entrepreneurial ventures.
Right.
His success with PayPal,
Hmm.
I think really revolutionized online payments.
Hmm.
And it laid the groundwork for his subsequent, more ambitious endeavors.
Absolutely. I mean, you can really see how PayPal was sort of the first step in this journey that he's been on, and it's amazing to see how far he's come since then.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those more ambitious endeavors like Tesla,
Sure.
his electric vehicle company.
Right.
It's really disrupted the automotive industry,
Absolutely.
and I think spurred a global shift towards sustainable transportation.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla has really been a game changer in terms of electric vehicles. They've shown that electric cars can be not only practical, but also desirable and stylish. And that's really helped to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles around the world.
Right. And then there's SpaceX, his aerospace company.
Of course.
With SpaceX, he achieved something truly groundbreaking, reusable rocket technology,
It's unbelievable, really.
which is making space exploration more accessible and commercially viable.
Yeah, I mean, before SpaceX, reusable rockets were pretty much science fiction, and now they're a reality. And that's really opening up a whole new world of possibilities for space exploration and even space travel.
Right. And it's not just Tesla and SpaceX. There's also Neuralink
Yes.
and the Boring Company,
Right.
which further demonstrate his ambition to tackle really large-scale challenges.
Right. I mean, Neuralink is focused on developing brain-computer interfaces,
Yeah.
which could have incredible implications for everything from treating neurological disorders to enhancing human capabilities.
Right.
And the Boring Company aims to revolutionize urban transportation with its network of underground tunnels.
Exactly.
So you can see that Musk is really interested in tackling some of the biggest challenges facing humanity today.
And these ventures, while very diverse in their focus, they share a common thread.
And what would that be?
They reflect Musk's ambition to not just build successful businesses, but to fundamentally address what he perceives as humanity's grand challenges.
That's a good point.
And in doing so, he's really positioning himself as a visionary leader.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean,
Mhm.
he's not just interested in making money. He's interested in making a difference in the world. And that's something that a lot of people find inspiring.
Right. A significant shift in Musk's trajectory, however, occurred with his acquisition of Twitter.
Right, which he later rebranded as X.
Exactly. And this move really signaled a departure from purely technological innovation towards shaping public discourse and wielding media influence.
Yes, I think that's one of the most interesting things about Musk's career is that he's not content to just stay in one lane. He's always looking for new challenges and new ways to make an impact. And with X, he's clearly trying to do something very different than what he's done before.
Right. And Musk's vision for X extends beyond a simple social media platform. He envisions it as an everything app.
Yeah, like WeChat in China.
Exactly. Integrating communication, commerce, and potentially even AI-driven tools into a single ecosystem.
It's a very ambitious goal.
It is. And this ambition really underscores a move from disrupting individual industries to potentially influencing how we communicate, consume information, and interact with the world at large.
Right. I think that's what makes X so potentially powerful. It's not just a platform for sharing news and opinions. It's a platform for everything from paying bills to ordering food to hailing a ride. So if Musk is successful in creating this everything app, he could have a huge impact on our daily lives.
Right. And one of the most debated aspects of Musk's leadership, particularly regarding X, is his approach to content moderation,
Yeah.
which he often frames as a staunch commitment to free speech.
Right.
However, concerns have been raised about whether his actions genuinely align with these ideals,
I see.
particularly regarding alleged algorithmic manipulation
Okay.
and potential ideological biases.
So you're saying that there's a disconnect between what Musk says he believes in and what he's actually doing on X.
Exactly, I think so.
Yeah.
A key point of contention is the perceived amplification of Musk's own tweets on the platform.
Oh, interesting.
Reports suggest that his posts are disproportionately visible in users' feeds.
Really? I hadn't noticed that myself, but I can see how that would be a problem.
It can.
Mm-hmm.
And it has led to concerns about algorithmic favoritism.
Right, because if Musk's tweets are being artificially boosted, then it gives him an unfair advantage over other users.
Precisely. And this lack of perceived neutrality in content dissemination can erode trust in the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. If users believe that the algorithms are being manipulated to prioritize specific voices, particularly those in power, then it undermines the platform's credibility as a space for fair and balanced discourse.
Right. And this issue is further complicated by Musk's public statements about tweaking algorithms to promote what he deems positive and informative content.
I see. So he's not even trying to hide the fact that he's manipulating the algorithms.
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
But he's leaving the definition of those terms positive and informative unclear.
Right. So it's completely subjective.
It is. And critics argue that this subjective approach to content promotion could be used to suppress dissenting opinions, effectively shaping narratives to favor Musk and those aligned with his viewpoints.
So it becomes a sort of echo chamber where only the voices that Musk agrees with are amplified.
Right. And that's a real danger to free speech because it means that dissenting voices are being silenced.
Exactly. Adding to the controversy are Musk's decisions to reinstate previously banned accounts.
Like Donald Trump and Andrew Tate.
Yes, including those controversial figures.
Right. And those decisions were presented as part of his commitment to open dialogue.
They were. However, these actions contrast with how the platform has dealt with some of Musk's critics.
Oh, interesting. So he's willing to reinstate the accounts of people who have been banned for violating the platform's rules, but he's not willing to tolerate criticism of himself.
That seems to be the case. Reports indicate that accounts of journalists and activists who have publicly disagreed with Musk have been banned or suspended.
Wow. So much for free speech, huh?
Right. And this apparent inconsistency in applying free speech principles raises questions about whether the platform genuinely tolerates dissent, especially when it challenges Musk's authority or business interests.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Musk is only interested in free speech when it's convenient for him. Right. Further complicating the issue of content moderation on X is the introduction of community notes.
What are community notes?
It's a feature designed to crowdsource fact-checking
Okay.
and provide context for tweets.
Interesting. So how does that work?
So, unlike traditional fact-checking mechanisms, which often rely on centralized editorial teams, Community Notes empowers users to append contextual information to posts,
I see.
aiming to combat misinformation and foster a more informed user base.
So it's kind of like Wikipedia for Twitter.
In a way, the system requires consensus from a diverse group of users before a note is published,
Right.
theoretically mitigating bias.
That makes sense.
Oh.
How do they ensure that the users who are contributing to community notes are actually diverse?
That's a good question, and it's one of the challenges of this approach.
Right, because if the community of users who are contributing to community notes is not truly diverse, then the notes themselves could be biased.
Exactly. And the introduction of community notes reflects a broader trend in social media toward community-driven fact-checking. Similar initiatives have been implemented by Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
And this shift raises important questions about the effectiveness of crowdsourced fact-checking.
Because on the one hand, it has the potential to increase transparency and user engagement.
Right.
But on the other hand, it also raises concerns about the potential for echo chambers where majority consensus might drown out minority viewpoints.
And it also raises concerns about the challenges of ensuring accuracy and neutrality in a decentralized system.
Right, because anyone can contribute to community notes, so how do you know that the information is accurate?
Exactly. And beyond the specifics of algorithmic control and content moderation, the ethical implications of Musk's control over X extend to the broader issue of concentrated media power.
I see.
Controlling a platform that serves as a global communication hub grants him unprecedented influence over public discourse.
Right, and that's a lot of power for one person to have.
It is. And this concentration of power, coupled with a lack of complete transparency surrounding algorithmic adjustments and content moderation practices, really amplifies anxieties about accountability and the potential impact on democratic values.
Yeah, I mean, if Musk is able to control what people see and hear on X, then he could potentially sway public opinion on a massive scale.
Exactly. And that's a very scary thought. Another area rife with tension is Musk's relationship with traditional media.
No, right. He's not a big fan of the legacy media, as he calls it.
He isn't. And his criticisms are frequent and often scathing, accusing these outlets of bias, misinformation, and a lack of transparency.
And he's not afraid to name names either.
He isn't. He's labeled specific outlets, including The Guardian and The New Yorker, with very inflammatory terms.
Right, which further escalates his critiques beyond general discontent.
Exactly. And these actions raise serious concerns about their potential to erode public trust in journalism as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, if people start to believe that all journalism is biased and untrustworthy, then it becomes very difficult to have a productive public discourse.
Exactly.
Because you need to have a shared understanding of facts in order to have a meaningful debate.
Right. And Musk often uses his platform to accuse traditional media of groupthink.
Groupthink.
Yes, claiming that dissenting voices are silenced to maintain a unified, often biased narrative.
I see. So he's saying that the mainstream media is just a bunch of sheep who are all following the same narrative.
In essence.
Yeah.
And he argues that this groupthink stifles meaningful debate and limits the range of perspectives available to the public.
But isn't there a reason why certain narratives become dominant?
There can be.
I mean, it's not always because of some nefarious conspiracy. It could be because those narratives are simply more accurate or more compelling.
Right. And Musk contrasts this perceived groupthink with his vision for X, positioning it as a platform that disrupts the perceived monopoly on information held by traditional media.
Okay.
His promotion of citizen journalism and tools like community notes reflects his belief in decentralizing information dissemination and empowering individual voices.
So he's basically saying that anyone can be a journalist now.
Right.
And that the traditional gatekeepers of information are no longer necessary.
Exactly. And this advocacy for citizen journalism, while seemingly empowering, also raises concerns.
Like what?
Well, critics point out that the lack of established journalistic standards and accountability inherent in citizen journalism could lead to the spread of misinformation.
Right, because anyone can publish anything online now, and there's no one to fact-check it or hold people accountable for spreading false information.
Right. And it could also lead to the spread of potentially harmful content.
Like hate speech or violent extremism.
Exactly. Further complicating matters are Musk's legal actions against media watchdogs, such as Media Matters.
Oh, interesting. So he's not just criticizing the media, he's also trying to silence his critics.
Right. And these lawsuits, often seen as attempts to suppress criticism, raise questions about their potential impact on free speech.
Right, because if Musk is successful in silencing his critics, then it sets a dangerous precedent for other powerful people who want to avoid accountability.
And it highlights an apparent contradiction. While Musk champions open dialogue and criticizes traditional media for suppressing dissent, he appears to be intolerant of criticism directed at himself or his management of X.
Yeah, it's a classic case of do as I say, not as I do.
Right. And this tension underscores the complexities of navigating free speech principles in the digital age and the challenges of balancing open dialogue with the need to address harmful content.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough issue. There's no easy answer.
There isn't. These conflicts between Musk and traditional media represent a pivotal moment in the evolution of information dissemination and public discourse. His critiques, while sometimes echoing valid concerns about media bias and accountability, raise concerns about the unintended consequences of undermining public trust in established journalistic institutions.
Right, because if people lose trust in all forms of media, then it becomes very difficult to have a functioning democracy.
It does. The question becomes, how do we balance the empowerment of individual voices with the need for accountability and standards in a digital age where information flows so freely?
That's a great question. And I don't think there's an easy answer.
There isn't.
But it's something that we need to figure out if we want to preserve a healthy and vibrant public sphere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Musk's actions have undeniable ripple effects across the media landscape, influencing how other platforms manage their relationships with media organizations and potentially shaping the future of journalism itself.
Right, because Musk is such a powerful and influential figure that what he does on X is likely to have a ripple effect across the entire tech industry.
Moving into the realm of politics, Elon Musk's influence has become increasingly pronounced,
Okay.
particularly through his support of Donald Trump's successful 2024 presidential campaign.
Interesting. So Musk is a Trump supporter.
He was very publicly So Musk emerged as a significant force in Trump's victory,
Okay.
not only through substantial financial contributions, but also through his strategic use of social media to amplify pro-Trump narratives.
So he was using his platform to help Trump get elected.
He was. And as the second largest donor to the Trump campaign, Musk's financial backing provided significant resources
Okay.
and reportedly influenced campaign strategies and potentially impacted the election's outcome.
Wow. So Musk had a real impact on the election.
He did, and his influence, however, extended beyond monetary support.
How so?
He leveraged his vast social media following on X to bolster Trump's message,
I see.
sharing content that highlighted Trump's policies, criticized opponents, and rallied support.
So he was using his platform to spread Trump's message and attack his opponents.
In essence, and Musk's ability to shape political discourse through his financial contributions and online influence is a stark example of how individuals with vast resources can impact democratic processes.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think about how much power a single billionaire can have over our elections.
It is. And in recognition of this support and likely his business acumen, President Trump appointed Musk as co-leader of the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency.
DOGE.
Yes, DOGE.
What's that?
Working alongside biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, Musk's mandate within DOGE is to identify and eliminate wasteful government spending with the ambitious goal of reducing federal expenditures by $2 trillion.
Wow, that's a huge goal.
It is. And DOGE plans to embed cost-cutting representatives within major U.S. government agencies,
Okay.
working in tandem with the existing U.S. Digital Service.
I see.
This strategy aims to increase operational efficiency by streamlining processes and eliminating redundancies.
So they're basically trying to make the government more efficient.
They are. However, the feasibility of such an undertaking is hotly debated.
Why is that?
Well, critics point to the potential for resistance from agency staff, the inherent complexities of implementing sweeping cost-cutting measures without harming essential services.
Right, because if you cut too much funding from essential services, then it could have a negative impact on the people who rely on those services.
Exactly. And then there's the sheer magnitude of the goal itself.
Yeah, $2 trillion is a lot of money.
It is acknowledged the daunting nature of DOGE's objective, stating that even achieving half of the intended cuts, a reduction of $1 trillion, would be a significant accomplishment, with potential to curb inflation and stimulate economic growth.
Okay.
However, a crucial point of contention lies in the potential conflict between Musk's advocacy for skilled labor through H-1B visa reform and his proposed cuts to the Department of Education.
I see. So he wants to bring in more skilled workers from overseas, but he also wants to cut funding for education.
Right.
That seems contradictory.
It does. Reducing funding for STEM education and vocational training programs could hinder the development of the domestic workforce, thereby increasing reliance on foreign talent.
Right. So it's a self-defeating policy.
It is. And this tension underscores the challenges of balancing fiscal responsibility with long-term investments in education and the development of a skilled workforce.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to save money, but it's also important to invest in the future.
Absolutely. And Musk's appointment to DOGE has also sparked widespread debate about potential conflicts of interest.
Oh, right, because he's the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX.
Exactly. Both companies with substantial government contracts.
So his position in DOGE could potentially benefit his own companies?
It could. And while he would operate under the guidelines of a special government employee, which allows for more flexibility than full-time federal employees, critics argued that his position could lead to undue influence over government contracts and regulatory decisions.
I see. So there's a concern that he might use his position in DOGE to benefit his own companies at the expense of the public good.
Right. And this situation presents a classic case of blurring the lines between private sector interests and public sector responsibilities, raising concerns about transparency, accountability, and whether Musk's decisions would be driven by a genuine desire to serve the public good or by the potential to benefit his own companies.
It's a tough one, because it's hard to know what Musk's motivations are.
It is. But it's something that we need to be aware of as we evaluate his actions.
Absolutely. And of course, Musk's growing political influence has drawn criticism from within the political sphere itself. Steve Bannon, a prominent conservative figure, has been particularly vocal, labeling Musk a truly evil guy and vowing to limit his role in the Trump administration.
Wow, that's pretty harsh.
It is. Bannon's opposition stems from disagreements over policies such as H-1B visas and a broader concern that Musk wields too much influence over Trump's agenda. This internal dissent highlights the complexities of Musk's political involvement and how his views and actions are creating friction even among those who might be considered ideological allies.
Right. And it's not just domestic politics where Musk's influence is being felt.
Right. His activities extend far beyond the borders of the United States. His interventions in various international political landscapes have sparked controversies and raised questions about the role of private individuals in global affairs.
And can you give us an example of that?
Sure. A prime example is his involvement in UK politics, which has been marked by public criticisms of government officials, endorsements of specific political movements, and the amplification of controversial narratives. These actions have sparked debates about the boundaries of foreign influence and the ethical considerations of powerful figures shaping domestic political discourse in other countries.
So he's essentially meddling in other countries' politics.
That's how some people see it. Musk's public criticisms of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, particularly regarding Starmer's handling of child sexual exploitation cases during his tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions, have been particularly inflammatory. Accusing Starmer of being complicit in the rape of Britain and even suggesting legal action against him, Musk's statements, widely disseminated on X, have fueled outrage and debate about accountability and the spread of misinformation in political discourse.
Man, what's been the reaction to these statements?
Well, while Musk has presented these pronouncements as a quest for justice, critics, including former officials, have condemned them as baseless smears that undermine public trust in democratic institutions. This raises a crucial question. Does Musk's immense platform and influence grant him the right to make such accusations, especially when they lack concrete evidence and potentially damage the reputations of individuals and institutions?
The slippery slope.
It is. Adding to the complexity is Musk's vocal support for Reform UK, a political movement pushing for significant changes to the British political system. While the veracity of reports claiming Musk is considering a $100 million donation to the party remains unclear, his interactions with figures like Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, demonstrate a clear interest in influencing UK politics.
So it's not just criticism. He's actively supporting certain political movements.
Right. And his public critique of Farage's leadership, suggesting the need for a new leader for Reform UK, further illustrates his willingness to engage in British political discourse, even if it sparks controversy.
Seems like he enjoys stirring the pot.
It's also noteworthy that Musk has reportedly granted Reform UK's official account special privileges on X, including a grey verification badge typically reserved for government entities. This action raises concerns about potential favoritism and the blurring of lines between personal political preferences and the impartial management of a platform that serves as a vital communication channel.
Right. So it's not just about what he says, but also about how he uses his platform to promote certain views.
Exactly. Musk's actions on X have extended to reinstating the account of Tommy Robinson, a far-right activist known for his inflammatory rhetoric. He has also engaged with figures like Andrew Tate, amplifying their statements and raising concerns about the normalization of extremist views.
That's concerning.
It is. His endorsement of Tate's claims about an Islamic crime problem in the UK, for example, has drawn sharp criticism for promoting divisive narratives and enabling the spread of potentially harmful content. These actions further fuel the debate about whether Musk's commitment to free speech outweighs the responsibility to prevent the platform from becoming a breeding ground for extremism and hate speech.
It's a tough balance.
It is. And this pattern of engaging with and amplifying controversial figures and narratives isn't limited to the UK. Musk's foray into German politics has sparked its own share of controversy. His endorsement of the far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD party, a group known for its anti-immigration and Eurosceptic policies, has generated significant pushback.
So what has he said about the AfD?
His declaration that only the AfD can save Germany has been widely interpreted as an endorsement of the party's nationalist and anti-establishment platform, fueling anxieties about his potential influence on political extremism and the stability of democratic institutions.
So he's endorsing far-right parties in multiple countries.
He is.
Yeah.
And critics argue that Musk's actions, particularly given his vast reach and influence, legitimize extremist views and embolden groups that threaten democratic values.
Yeah.
It's a troubling development, raising questions about the responsibility of individuals with such significant platforms to consider the broader societal impact of their endorsements and pronouncements.
It seems like he's not really thinking about the consequences of his actions.
In Romania, Musk's interventions have been linked to political and constitutional crises. His actions, perceived as attempts to influence domestic politics, have fueled concerns about national sovereignty and the role of external actors in potentially undermining democratic governance.
And what has been the reaction from other European leaders?
European leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer have publicly criticized Musk's interference, expressing fears about the destabilizing effects his actions could have on the European political landscape. This underscores the growing unease among established political figures about the unchecked influence of individuals like Musk who operate outside traditional political structures.
So they're worried about his power.
They are. His influence even extends to countries like Denmark and Finland, where specific incidents have highlighted his role in shaping immigration narratives. In Denmark, Musk's reposting of a claim alleging that immigrants have a crime rate 900% higher than native Danes sparked heated debate about the accuracy of such statements and their potential to incite prejudice against immigrant communities.
So he's amplifying harmful stereotypes.
He is. Similarly, in Finland, his confrontational response to criticism from a Finnish doctoral researcher using offensive language further fueled controversy and raised questions about his approach to engaging with those who challenge his viewpoints. These incidents demonstrate how Musk's immense platform can amplify divisive narratives, particularly regarding sensitive issues like immigration, and potentially exacerbate existing social tensions.
It seems like he's not very good at handling criticism.
Musk's complex relationship with Russia and Ukraine further highlights his foray into the realm of geopolitics. His initial involvement in the Ukraine conflict began with the activation of SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet service in early 2022. This move provided crucial communication capabilities for Ukraine amid Russia's invasion, earning praise for Musk's willingness to leverage his technology to support a nation under siege.
So he was initially seen as a hero.
He was, however. Musk's subsequent actions, particularly his decision to restrict the use of Starlink for offensive operations, citing concerns about escalating the conflict, have drawn criticism. His refusal to extend Starlink coverage to Crimea, which thwarted a planned Ukrainian drone strike, exemplified this stance.
So he's trying to stay neutral in the conflict.
That seems to be his goal. These decisions reveal a delicate balancing act. Musk seemingly wants to provide support while avoiding actions he believes could escalate the conflict, a stance aligned with his broader focus on reducing government involvement and promoting efficiency. His actions raise complex questions about the role of private individuals and companies in navigating geopolitical conflicts and the potential consequences of their decisions.
Right. It's a tricky situation.
It is. This nuanced involvement in the Ukraine conflict is further complicated by Musk's reported communications with Vladimir Putin.
Oh, interesting. So he's talking to Putin.
These interactions, which reportedly began in late 2022 and cover topics ranging from personal matters to business ventures and geopolitical issues, have sparked intense scrutiny.
And why is that?
The concern stems from Musk's access to sensitive information through SpaceX's contracts with NASA and the Department of Defense. If he is indeed sharing such information with Putin, it raises serious national security concerns.
So there's a worry that he might be compromising national security.
There is. The Kremlin has acknowledged a conversation between Musk and Putin, but claims it occurred before 2022 and was limited to technological discussions. However, other reports suggest that Putin requested Musk to prevent the activation of Starlink services over Taiwan, a move aligned with Chinese interests. This raises further questions about the extent of Musk's involvement with Russia and the potential influence of Russian interests on his decisions.
So it's unclear what was discussed and what influence Putin might have over Musk.
Exactly. And Musk's ties to China are another area of concern. Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory plays a crucial role in the company's global production, with China accounting for a substantial portion of Tesla's sales in 2024.
So he has a lot of business interests in China.
He does. This reliance on the Chinese market has led to significant engagement with Chinese officials, including a meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang to discuss autonomous driving technologies and data transfer permissions.
So he's working closely with the Chinese government.
He is. These interactions underscore Musk's deep integration into the Chinese regulatory environment, a move that has benefited Tesla's operations, but also raises questions about the influence of Chinese interests on Musk's global decision-making.
And has he said anything about China's political ambitions?
His suggestion that Taiwan could become a special administrative zone of China further fueled anxieties, drawing accusations of appeasement and oversimplifying a complex geopolitical issue to protect his business interests.
So there's a concern that he's putting his business interests ahead of the interests of democracy.
There is. Musk's interaction with both Russian and Chinese leadership have sparked criticism from U.S. lawmakers and officials. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson has voiced concerns about the reported conversations with Putin, emphasizing the need for transparency. Critics argue that Musk's dual roles as a business leader and a figure increasingly involved in geopolitics create a dangerous conflict of interest.
So there's a call for more transparency from Musk.
There is. His seeming reluctance to condemn actions by Russia and China, combined with his significant influence over both U.S. policy and private sector innovation, has further complicated perceptions of his role on the world stage. It's a situation that underscores the evolving and often unsettling influence of private individuals in international relations.
It's a new world.
It is Musk's impact on global affairs extends beyond his direct interactions with foreign leaders. His outspoken criticism of the U.S. State Department's Global Engagement Center, GEC, culminated in its defunding in late 2024.
What was his issue with the GEC?
Musk argued that the GEC was excessively involved in censorship and media manipulation, labeling it the worst offender in U.S. government censorship. He cited specific instances where he believed the GEC overstepped its mandate, though his evidence often relied on anecdotal claims rather than comprehensive data.
So he saw it as a threat to free speech.
He did. This move sparked debate about whether Musk's motivations were purely driven by a commitment to free speech or if they were intertwined with his broader political leanings and desire to limit government influence. The defunding of the GEC has raised questions about the balance between combating disinformation and safeguarding free speech, particularly in the digital age where information warfare has become a potent tool.
So it's a complicated issue with no easy answers.
It is Musk's foray into politics, both domestically and internationally, marks a significant shift in the role of tech moguls in governance. His actions challenge the traditional boundaries between private enterprise and public policy, sparking vital discussions about accountability ethics and the influence of individuals with vast wealth and technological power on democratic processes.
His activities highlight the limitations of existing global governance frameworks in effectively addressing the growing influence of private individuals and corporations. Traditional institutions, primarily designed to regulate state actors, often struggle to keep pace with the rapid advancements in technology and the increasing power wielded by non-state actors like Musk.
Right. I mean, you've got these legacy systems that were set up to deal with nation states, and now you have these incredibly powerful individuals who can operate across borders and who have a level of influence that rivals that of many governments.
It's really unprecedented. And Musk's interactions with foreign leaders, his involvement in geopolitical conflicts, and his ability to shape global narratives demonstrate the urgent need for new approaches to global governance that can effectively address the challenges posed by individuals and corporations operating on a transnational scale.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. It's not just about Musk. It's about the broader trend of private actors having an increasingly significant impact on global affairs. And we need to start thinking about how to govern that influence in a way that's fair, transparent, and accountable.
Right. And what are some potential solutions?
Well, one idea is to establish international regulations specifically tailored to private actors with significant global influence.
And what would those regulations look like?
They could focus on key areas such as transparency, accountability, and ethical standards, ensuring that these actors contribute positively to global stability and sustainable development.
So for you,
Well, you could have regulations that require greater disclosure of political donations, lobbying efforts, and interactions with foreign governments. You could also have regulations that mandate the implementation of ethical codes of conduct for companies operating in sensitive sectors such as technology, energy, and defense.
So essentially creating a more level playing field and ensuring that these powerful individuals and corporations are held accountable for their actions.
Exactly. Another crucial aspect of updating global governance frameworks involves strengthening international cooperation and collaboration between governments, corporations, and civil society organizations.
So bringing everyone to the table to work together.
Right. Fostering dialogue and partnerships among these stakeholders can help to address shared challenges, mitigate risks, and promote more equitable and sustainable outcomes.
And it's also essential to empower international organizations like the United Nations to play a more active role in regulating the activities of private actors with global reach.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. The UN has a mandate to promote peace and security, human rights, and sustainable development, but it's often hamstrung by its lack of enforcement power. And that needs to change if we want the UN to be effective in regulating the activities of these powerful private actors.
And what specific powers would you give to the UN?
Well, for one thing, you could give them greater authority to investigate and address human rights violations, environmental damage, and other harmful activities perpetrated by corporations operating across national borders.
So basically giving them teeth.
Exactly. Ultimately, creating a more effective and accountable system of global governance requires a willingness to adapt to the evolving nature of power and to recognize the interconnectedness of political, economic, and technological forces in shaping the future of our planet.
It's a tall order, but it's one that we need to start working on now.
I agree. Beyond the realms of politics, economics, and governance, Musk's influence has permeated the cultural landscape, shaping public perceptions of leadership success and the possibilities of technological innovation. His public persona, often characterized by bold pronouncements, unconventional behaviors, and a willingness to challenge established norms, has made him a polarizing figure, attracting both fervent admirers and vocal critics.
He's a very complex figure. There's no doubt about that.
Mm.
And I think that's part of what makes him so fascinating to so many people.
Yeah, I agree. He's a bit of an enigma. He's brilliant, he's ambitious, he's driven, but he's also flawed. He makes mistakes, he says things that he probably shouldn't, and he doesn't always seem to think through the consequences of his actions.
Right. And yet he's achieved incredible things. He's founded multiple successful companies, he's pushed the boundaries of technological innovation, and he's inspired millions of people around the world.
He has, and I think that's why people are so drawn to him. He represents something that a lot of people aspire to: success, innovation, disruption. But he also represents something else: the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of humility, and the need for ethical leadership.
So what's the verdict? Is Elon Musk a force for good or a force for evil?
I don't think it's that simple. I think he's both. He has the potential to do great things, but he also has the potential to do a lot of harm. And ultimately, it's up to us to hold him accountable and to make sure that his influence is used for good.
Well said. And I think that's a good place to leave it. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Elon Musk. It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope you've learned something new along the way.
It's been my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a new and intriguing topic.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.